And they stay there, and they say yeah, and they say there. Cause all I do is win, win, win. And if you going in, put your hands in the air, make them stay there.
Quiet, numbskulls, I'm broadcasting.
Radio, 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 radio.
Spanning the globe to bring you the constant variety of sport, the thrill of victory, and the agony of defeat.
What in the wide, wide world of sports is going on here?
The human drama of athletic competition.
It's the CANUSA Sports Desk on the 405 radio. Good evening. Once again, it is our special Sunday Night Football edition. The San Francisco 49ers getting one hung on them by the Seattle Seahawks, 42-13, the final score. So that really rearranges the deck chairs as far as the NFC playoffs are concerned, and we'll kick that around with our guys in a couple of minutes here. Let's introduce Derek Marquez from Toronto, Ontario, sports writer, blogger. Good evening, Derek.
Good evening, John.
And Frank Nutt from New York, NCAA hoops guru and proprietor of NicksWag.com. So good evening, Frank.
Good evening, John. How you doing?
We're great. And our guest tonight is Terrence Freeman, raised in Gary, Indiana. He attended and graduated in 2004 from Emerson High School for Visual and Performing Arts. Played his sports at Lew Wallace High School. I'm guessing the Performing Arts High School probably didn't field a football team. That's just a theory. Anyway, he attended college at St. Joseph's College, Rensselaer, Indiana, NCAA Division II school. He graduated with a Bachelor of Arts in Art in 2010. He's referred to as the twin often of Ray Rice, skill-wise and physique-wise, and will be a force to contend with on any team. His plan is to be a running back or fullback in the NFL in the very near future. He is self-motivated, extremely hardworking, and a very determined player. So, Terrence Freeman, good evening, and thanks for coming on the show with us.
How you doing, guys? Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So, Frank, Derek, let's just go over the landscape of the NFC playoffs, I guess, a little bit with the big loss by San Fran tonight. Obviously, this affects the seeding, the home field advantage for teams like, Green Bay and possibly anybody else who might make the playoffs in the NFC.
So, yeah, I think, this really changes around giving Green Bay the opportunity to gain that second spot, and San Francisco just really did not come out to play today. What do you think, Frank?
Yeah, I was really surprised. I mean, we saw San Francisco lay an egg against the Giants, I believe, in week 3 or 4. But then since then, they've really been pretty consistent. Definitely, in my opinion, one of the top 3 teams. Certainly a playoff team in the NFC. They have. I think they're either close to or they did lock up the division. I'm not sure what their division record is. If they end up tying with the Seahawks, I think they split their head-to-head matchup. As far as that's concerned, we have to see what happens next week. But Atlanta locking up the 1 seed throughout, home playoff throughout, and now what do we expect from San Fran? Is this a statement game for the Seahawks? Is it just because they're at home? So we're really kind of lost, as far as what to take from San Fran. Is it the San Fran we saw last Sunday night, or is the San Fran that we saw tonight, the real San Francisco 49ers? What do you think?
Well, tonight's San Fran team was just awful. I said I don't know. That's the problem with San Francisco all year was that they have 2 teams. I know we've seen it come out where they've played well, then the other weeks that they lost to, I believe, is Minnesota. So it's just they're inconsistent this year. What do you think there, Terrence?
I feel the same. They didn't come to play tonight. Granted, going into Seattle was a hard place to play for any team. But you still got to. You're one of the top teams in the league. You got to do a little better than 13 points.
Yeah.
So just quickly looking at the standings here, and it looks like right now San Fran has a better divisional record because of that tie they had. So they're 2-1. Yeah. The Seahawks are 2-3. So I believe that's what would wrap it up. Actually, no, they both have one divisional game left, so it really doesn't matter. It comes down to what happens next week.
Yeah, next week. Yeah, and I think, this shows just the really the level of parity, especially in the NFC, that we've seen this year. I mean, we've seen teams, lay eggs, so you really, the Giants, the Packers, the Falcons, they've all, the 49ers twice now. I mean, we've seen teams just not show up in certain weeks. So it's kind of tough to, do you just take, do you throw out the outliers? Do you throw out the really good game they play and the egg they lay, and then kind of take what, the meat and potatoes from the middle? And if you do that, I think you're looking, Falcons, Green Bay, 49ers, Seahawks, Super Bowl, the Super Bowl representative coming from one of those four teams.
But I just wanted to officially welcome Terrence on the show. We haven't had a chance to really do that. We kind of just jumped right into it. Sorry about that. So Terrence, just quickly go over what you've been kind of doing since your playing days, where you're at right now in your football career.
Right now, I'm in the stage of getting better in my football career. And what I mean by getting better, I mean preparing myself, physically and mentally for the game. I spend hours on the field, in the gym, and watching film, watching games, just trying to learn everything I can do to give me a competitive edge, when I have my opportunity to showcase my talents.
Are you kind of leading towards arena football, Canadian Football League, NFL Europe? Kind of what's the next step for Terrence Freeman in football? Well,
I have a few things lined up as far as Arena League goes, but my ultimate goal is the NFL.
Mm-hmm. So
cool.
When does the Arena League actually start? When does their season usually run from?
I don't know the exact date. I know camp reports, I want to say March, early March.
Yeah, because we don't have an arena team anymore up in Canada, so I wasn't sure. Is it something that's run in the winter, like February, March after the Super Bowl, or something like early spring? Kind of when that season is. I should look that up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So now, Terrence, what now you're a running back, fullback. What? And in your bio, it said that you're Ray Rice like. So anytime that compliment's thrown out there, he's one of the top running backs in the league. Is that who you model your game off of? Is that if we saw you play, is that the type of runner you are? Is that the type of player you are?
Well, I mean, I try to, I watch the game and I study my position and, backs and fullbacks as well as anybody, can. And what I try to do is, I try to take all the good things that I see, those qualities from those players and, put them into my game. He's a phenomenal player, and I can't take anything away for that. When opportunity presents itself and I'm in the league, somebody compare themselves to me. I won't be compared to Ray Rice. I'll just be Terrence Freeman. So.
And what has been your biggest challenge so far in your football career, kind of stopping you from getting to that next level? What do you feel?
Just the opportunity, man. It's hard coming from a D2 school. It's
yeah.
They always bring into question the level of competition you play and all those things, but just getting the opportunity and the nod, from a D2 school is the biggest challenge.
Yeah, I guess I think it was Frank and I were discussing this kind of just last week or so. You almost have to play for a coach at D2 and then have him move on and then him remember having you and giving you the opportunity. It's really kind of, you really need help. Just like in anything in life, football is also that case where you need to kind
Very
of
political.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
right.
Now, Terrence, what would you say? Your strong attributes are. Your positive. What do you bring to the table? On the football field as far as things that put you ahead of the competition.
I would have to say definitely my heart. My heart and my will and desire to that I want to pretty much do whatever I want to do to my opponent that's in front of me. The desire to impose my will. When I'm out on the field, it's like I'm in a different world. I don't think anybody can stop me. If I got the ball in my hands or if I'm going to block somebody, it's trouble.
So would you say that would you say that you're like a downhill runner, more of a finesse back? It says fullback, so I assume you're a bruiser, a good blocker. What exactly, is your style of play?
I'm definitely downhill, but my philosophy for, running the ball, playing the game of football is, I'm going to beat up on you the first half of the game. All the linebackers, DBs, I'm going to initiate the contact myself. Now, the second half, if I'm done beating up on you, I can run around you. I'll give you a move or two because you're not going to want to tackle me. You're not going to want to hit me.
I like that.
That's my approach to the game.
I like that.
So, in the Arena Football League, you trying to get to, as a running back, fullback, same kind of position there as well?
Arena use mostly fullbacks. The fullbacks there do a lot of blocking, not so much, running. Hopefully, I can, change that.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, hey, this is, I want to change the game a little bit. So, but definitely in the Arena League, they do a lot of blocking. They'll give the fullback the ball, in the red zone area, but they're pretty much an extra blocker. They'll catch some passes sometimes.
So, Terrence, just to kind of let yourself be exposed to our listeners, if you could go to dinner with 3 people, dead or alive, Frank and I are busy, we can't go that day, who would you invite?
And John.
And John.
First, I would have to say, I'd go to dinner with my dad. And I say that because, he died 2 weeks before I turned 2 years old. So outside of, that, I really don't know too much about him, just from what, my mom and my family tells me about him. But
Mm-hmm.
I would definitely like to meet him, and do some father-son things in person. Second, I would have to say Walter Payton. You know what I'm saying? I'd love to ask the GOAT, how he prepared for his craft, how he prepared himself to be the best running back in history, best running back in the league. I would definitely like to, just ask him a few questions just to learn from him. And last but not least, I'd have to say my wife, because if I didn't add her to the list, I'd cause a problem for me.
Hey, man, it's Christmas time. I got no problem with that, man. I got no problem. Very cool.
Definitely don't want that.
Absolutely.
So, Frank, we discussed before, kind of if Terrence kind of models his game around anyone. I know you like asking that question for basketball players. Does that question still, could also apply in football players? Is there a certain running back? People compare you to Ray Rice, but do you see yourself as a Ray Rice type back, or is there another back that you try and model your game around, Terrence?
I run like Ray a little bit. I do, but Ray, he only weighs about 212.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a bigger back. I'm big, but I still got some wheels on me. I can move. I can get out there and run.
You can still go over the top?
Oh, yeah, over the top, around, through. I do it all. But I would have to say Michael Turner is probably about more of my body type,
Okay.
Size-wise, as far as, height and weight and all of that. Actually, I probably weigh a little more than Michael Turner right now. But,
We'll take a break and come back. We will take your phone calls at 877-297-8022. Sunday Night Football edition of the CANUSA Sports Desk. Seattle over San Fran, 42-13. And we'll be right back with Derek and Frank and Terrence here on the CANUSA Sports Desk on the 405 radio.
You're on the 405.
In Disney's classic The Lion King, Mufasa teaches his cub Simba to be confident, wise, and respectful of the world around him. As Simba grows, it's these values that help him claim his place as King of Pride Rock. In our world, every young person's future deserves the solid foundation that a father's involvement and encouragement can provide. And often, it's the smallest moments that can have the biggest impact on a child's life. A game of catch, an afternoon picnic, or even a hug at just the right moment can make all the difference in their world. Play your part in the circle of life. Take time to be a dad today. Visit fatherhood.gov to learn more. That's fatherhood.gov. This message has been brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
Hey, sports fans, this is Derek Marquez.
And Frank Nutt from the CANUSA Sports Desk on the 405 radio.
Just a reminder to check out our live shows on Saturday mornings at 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific.
And CANUSA Sports Desk post-game show, which airs following the Sunday Night Football game and after any other big sport event.
Check us out on iTunes and download our podcasts of any of our old shows that you've missed.
CANUSA Sports Desk and CANUSA Sports Desk post-game show are available for download shortly after we air.
Check us out on our website at www.canusasd.com. That's CANUSASD.com for our latest blogs.
And you can also follow us on Twitter at CANUSASD for your up-to-date latest sports info and tweets for our upcoming shows.
At the Weekend 405, we get beachy.
All I hear is some tasty waves.
We thought you could use beachy all week long.
Oh, gnarly!
And it'll be the weekend faster than you can say, Sean Penn sucks.
Hey, bud, what's your problem?
You're on the 405.
Just a bit outside.
It's a Sunday night football edition of the CANUSA Sports Desk on the 405 radio. Toll free, you talk to us, 877-297-8022. Our special guest is Terrence Freeman, and our regular host, Derek Marquez, Frank Nutt. And let's mix it up and talk about tonight's Sunday night football game, San Fran and Seattle, guys.
So, Frank, what did you think of the game? We discussed it. This is not the same San Fran team that we saw last Sunday night. We talked against New England. What was your take on it yourself? This has now been 2 weeks in a row. Personally, I've seen Seattle when they played Buffalo last week in Toronto. So, you can't complain. They're impressive. I think they are legit. What's your take?
Yeah, no, I agree. Seattle's legit, especially at home. They're almost a different team at home than they are on the road. I think, they're perfect at home so far. It's almost cliche to say, the 12th man, they're just a different team at home. I mean, the noise there, the crowd getting behind them. I mean, they came out like a bat out of hell in that game. I mean, 28-6, in the first two quarters of that game. They were doing it all over. They had long pass plays down the field. They had a balanced run game. Marshawn Lynch is a beast. And I think I think Russell Wilson ended the game with 4 touchdowns. So I think anytime that Marshawn Lynch can open up the game like he does for Russell Wilson, and Russell Wilson doesn't turn the ball over, and this defense plays the way they did tonight. I mean, you could see they were frustrating Frank Gore. They were frustrating Colin Kaepernick. I mean, the hits that some of the secondary had, taking, that hit along the sideline that we were talking about. That was a game changer to me. The block field goal. San Francisco's pulled laid an egg twice now. Once against the Giants, once against Seattle. And the Seahawks just look like they're peaking at the right time of the year. What do you guys think?
I agree. I think Seattle kind of is really people thought they wouldn't be legit and go this long into the season. They're going to crack, but they're proven that they can do it game in and game out. Just kind of a touch back on the crowd noise we talked about earlier. And I know the reporter there kind of had that sample of how loud it is. But, John, you've been to Lambeau Field. Frank, you've gone to Giant Stadium. Is it not loud? Like, it just, I'm assuming it's that loud anywhere if it's a meaningful game. Like, I'm picturing, Lambeau is just as loud. New York is as loud. I've been to Bills games, but they were never really meaningful games. So, yeah, there was 80,000 people there, but, I don't think it has that atmosphere if it's a meaningful game on a Sunday night. But, Terrence, you've probably been through a few NFL games and playing in a, loud atmosphere yourself. Do you think that was really, were they just blowing it out of proportion of, just playing something up into the storyline with the crowd noise?
I don't think they were playing it. I mean, Seattle, the fan base there is, serious, just like within the NFL team. But it seems as though within Seattle, they kick it up a notch, especially, with this team, fighting for a playoff position. They had the 12th man.
Yeah, and it's funny because Seattle's soccer team, I forget the name of their MLS team, but I've heard
Seattle Sounders.
Yeah, I've heard great things about the fans, that go to those games as well. Like I've been to playoff games at the old Giant Stadium, and then I've been to games at the new MetLife Stadium, and it's just, it is loud, but not to the point. We saw the 49ers in the first half of that game. Delay of game, false start. They had to burn a few timeouts there early. That's legit. You can blow up the 12th man as much as you want, but when you see the quarterback, I don't know if you guys saw the huddle. They were right on top of Kaepernick. To hear him. So I think that it's legit there. In Seattle, and they their fans come with almost like a college mentality, like we see in Oklahoma City. When the Thunder play. Or like some of these other college atmospheres, they seem to be a little bit, they seem to take it to that next level.
So, Terrence, what was your take on tonight's game? Sorry.
I don't know what the problem with San Fran was. They definitely didn't show up today. I don't know if they know they had a football game today. I don't know what the problem was. Seattle was really ready to go. They trying to prove something. It was very disappointing. So, like I say, I expected for a Sunday night game, a game of this caliber, this big, to at least, be competitive. It wasn't even competitive. It wasn't competitive from the jump.
Yeah.
Now, so go ahead, Frank.
Well, I want to get your guys' opinion. Do you agree that blocked field goal, I believe it was either the end of the first quarter or the second quarter, was really the game changer? It seemed like it was, they could have chipped away at the lead early, and then that, the blocked field goal had turned into a touchdown. To me, that was a game changer. Do you guys agree?
Yeah, I personally felt bad for David Akers getting that block punt, considering the week that he had. You guys getting death threats. First chance, again, he gets his block punked, where it's never the kicker's really fault if you get your punt blocked. It's not like he missed it, but just because they go, here we go again. Here's another thing that goes on. He's a good kicker. He's had a long NFL career. He doesn't deserve what he was getting this week with the death threats. Sorry, Terrence.
Yeah, I agree. It was a game changer. It gave momentum. And this momentum is definitely hard to overcome. Definitely hard to come, especially when it's the home team that's gaining momentum. So.
Yeah, and I think anytime that you can, you could take a scoring chance away from an opponent and turn it into 6 points that quick, is really demoralizing, especially a team that's, they're frustrated offensively because, their run game early wasn't working. Their pass protections were pretty good. The Seattle's D-backs were, frustrating San Francisco's wide receivers. They had some, good hits in the secondary. So to me, I just think the timing of it was certainly a game changer, and I think we saw the, almost. I'm not going to say they didn't come to play, because I feel like if you're an NFL player, you come to play every week, but you definitely saw the level of frustration on the sideline after that play.
So, do you think there's a chance that these teams meet up again in the playoffs?
I think so. From what we've seen from Seattle so far, it wouldn't surprise me. However far they went. Especially if I don't think it's possible that they get a home game. But if their defense shows up and Marshawn Lynch can be the beast that he is, and Russell Wilson takes care of the ball, I see there's no doubt in my mind that this team is capable of, winning one or two games in the playoffs.
Yeah, but Terrence, same kind of question to you. Do you think San Fran has that, they have that Jekyll and Hyde team right now? Do they have the consistency to win a couple weeks in the playoffs, or with what we've seen in the last 2 weeks?
The team has been, they've been in the playoffs before, so I definitely think they're able to contend in the playoffs. But as far as them playing, going against Seattle again, Seattle's peaking now, so they're gaining momentum for the rest of the season right now. It kind of reminded me a little bit about, New York from last year, just gaining that momentum.
Yeah.
So
with a better
The big difference, though, between last year and this year is Alex Smith.
Yeah.
You know, Kaepernick hasn't been there, so their quarterback that hasn't been in the playoffs yet, and he couldn't get anything going today. And, you know, Frank and I were talking, you know, why not put Alex Smith in? He's a guy that they mentioned it in his last 2 starts before he was pulled. He had good numbers. He did not. Yeah. He was pulled because of injury, and they pretty much looked for an opportunity to get him out there. That's pretty much what it's showing now, because it wasn't like he had terrible Mark Sanchez, Ryan Fitzpatrick type outings where he was just brutal. He had a winning record with this team, and there's been a couple weeks like
he was 13 and 3. Touchdown to interception. I mean, the guy threw 13 touchdowns to 3 interceptions. Through 12 games or whatever, 10 games or so. So I mean, that's pretty legit.
And I felt the same thing that game against St. Louis a couple weeks ago when Cap saying nothing going. The game was like, I think it was like 7-2 for the longest time. It was like nothing was going on. It seemed like there was a defensive touchdown when they scored. So that's just like, you know, those opportunities that you'd think if Alex Smith was their 1B quarterback that they would have put him in, but it's clearly seen that Alex Smith will not see another snap as a 49er unless Kaepernick is injured. What do you think, Terrence?
Well, I see that, you know, I think San Fran's rolling with Kaepernick only because he brings another element to the game for them. You know, being able to tuck the ball and run, you know, that's huge for them. You saw a little bit of it tonight, you know, but, you know, Alex was more of a patient, you know, I'm going to run the offense, you know, I'm going to throw a little short passes here, short. He controlled the game. You know, he tried to play mistake-free football, but it didn't seem like they were allowing him to take any chances. So, you know, with Kaepernick, it seems that they're allowing him to take chances.
I agree. Now, is that type of football, is that conducive to playoff football? I mean, you know, you have a guy like Alex Smith who's not going to turn the ball over. You know, you're going to give your defense and your run game a chance to, you know, really control the pace of play. Is that a style that's conducive to, you know, to the playoffs? I mean, is kind of going out on a limb and taking more chances. I mean, that's good in the regular season, but, you know, is that what's going to win playoff games?
Well, if you're trying to win, playoffs is win to go home. So I mean, you can't be safe in the playoffs. You know, you got to bring it all. And just, you know, with Kaepernick being so young, I think he has enough group of guys that actually, you know, have playoff experience around him that, you know, he'll be fine.
Yeah, especially on that defense. I mean, that defense is loaded.
I just haven't seen much from Kaepernick. Just being consistent with the drive after drive, and I've seen him in a few games where it's like last week he was great for that first half, and then he kind of disappeared in the second half, and that wasn't the whole offense disappeared. It wasn't just Kaepernick, but you know, I watched a lot of that St. Louis game again. He couldn't get nothing going again tonight, so it's quite often. I played in the last 5 starts, or probably, you know, at least 3 starts I can think of that he really couldn't efficiently move the ball on the team he was playing on, and that's where you didn't see that with Alex Smith that often, at least in the early on his career, yes, but not in the past year and a half that Alex Smith was the starting quarterback of the 49ers, and this is what they did last year.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I'm wondering, you know, is Harbaugh going to be, you know, will he do? Because I mean, when Kaepernick became the starter, we were like, oh, you know, is he going to do this? You know, it's kind of an unprecedented move, you know, someone to lose their spot due to injury. You know, could this be a time where he just says, I don't give a shit what anyone thinks, and, you know, I'm going to send, you know, Alex Smith to start again? I mean, you know, would that surprise you more than what he did with Kaepernick? I don't know. You know, but just looking at the game tonight, I mean, have we ever seen a home field advantage, you know, more than Seattle's had?
Terrence?
As far as the crowd noise, no. I mean, back a few years ago when the Patriots were going undefeated, I mean, they were just great all the way around. So I mean, we've seen, you know, teams play great at home before, but like I said, Seattle's they've taken it to a new level.
I think also the few things that they had on it tonight was, you know, Sunday Night Football, national televised game, divisional game. So they had a lot of things, just even ramping them up. You know, they're allowed on a 1 o'clock, so on a, you know, afternoon game in Seattle, and just having the prime time and divisional rival really kind of gave them extra momentum for the fans as well. And it's harder to get out of getting them out of the game when you know, their team goes up. It was at 14-0 early.
Yeah, and I think Seattle. If you look at Seattle as a sports town, I mean, I remember some of the Sonic games. When they had an NBA team, they got pretty crazy. And when they had good teams in Seattle, I mean, it always seemed like Seattle was they would always come out and support their team. And I think with the Mariners having a couple an off decade, you could say, and the Seahawks team not being the greatest team over the last couple years, now they're definitely better. We've seen a kind of a resurgence there up in Seattle. So maybe this is just a passionate fan base. They're riding a pretty good team with a good defense, and they were missing a few of their D-backs tonight, and they were still able to cover those pretty dynamic wide receivers. And then their run game. To me, Marshawn Lynch is just as important as any running back in the league.
Well, and I think too is that this is a year that no one expected Seattle to do this well, so I think that even motivates the fans even more.
For sure.
Okay, we will take a quick break and come back. Your phone calls, as always, toll free 877-297-8022. It's the Sunday Night Football edition of the CANUSA Sports Desk on the 405 Radio.
You're on the 405.
Hey there, Ranters. This is Katie Mitchell of Sports Rants Radio, and I'm inviting you to join myself and Anthony tomorrow every Tuesday night right here on Sports Rants Radio for the Rantin' and Ravin' Show. We talk all the hottest headlines, bring you the best guests, including celebrities, athletes, and bloggers. And Anthony and I even go head-to-head picking some games. So every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, tune in to the Rantin' and Ravin' Show right here on the #1 rated online sports radio station, Sports Rants Radio. And be part of the action at sportsrants.com.
This is Alice Cooper for RADD. There's a lot of things we have no control of in this world, but that's not the case with drunk driving. If you're going to drink, don't drive. Think ahead and choose a designated driver. Remember, music lives on, and so should you.
Yes, we all got
A public service announcement brought to you by the U.S. Department of Transportation, RAD, the National Association of Broadcasters, and the Ad Council.
Hey, sports fans, this is Derek Marquez.
And Frank Nutt from the CANUSA Sports Desk on the 405 Radio.
Just a reminder to check out our live shows on Saturday mornings at 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific.
And CANUSA Sports Desk post-game show, which airs following the Sunday Night Football game and after any other big sport event.
Check us out on iTunes and download our podcasts of any of our old shows that you've missed.
CANUSA Sports Desk and CANUSA Sports Desk post-game show are available for download shortly after we air.
Check us out on our website at www.canusasd.com. That's CANUSASD.com for our latest blogs.
And you can also follow us on Twitter at CANUSASD for your up-to-date latest sports info and tweets for our upcoming shows.
John Grant here on the 405 Radio from Los Angeles, California. We feature live talk Saturdays from 9 till noon Eastern and weeknights at 11 Eastern. The rest of the week, check out the West Coast Adult Alternative right here on the 405 Radio.
You're on the 405.
Personally, I think we got hosed on that call.
It's the Sunday Night Football edition of the CANUSA Sports Desk on the 405 Radio. Toll free, you talk to us, 877-297-8022. Terrence Freeman is on hand, Derek Marquez, Frank Nutt, and we're ready for your calls. So just give us a call here and get in on the conversation. Sunday Night Football, San Fran getting whacked pretty good by Seattle, 42-13. And back to Derek Marquez.
So, Frank, you can go through tonight's scores and this afternoon scores?
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll start off with last night's game. Atlanta took care of business against Detroit, in Detroit, 31-18, locking up the #1 seed in the NFC. Carolina today defeated Oakland 17-6. New Orleans in overtime defeated Dallas in Dallas 34-31. Green Bay, put up 55 against Tennessee 55-7. Minnesota went into Houston, beat Houston 23-6. However, Adrian Peterson, I believe, only had 89 yards, so he's got 206 next week if he wants to get to the all-time mark. New England took care of Jacksonville 23-16. Indianapolis beat up on Kansas City 20-13. Miami defeated Buffalo 24-10. San Diego went into New York and beat up on the Jets 27-17. Washington continued their hot streak with getting RG3 back 27-20. Cincinnati beat Pittsburgh 13-10. St. Louis beat Tampa Bay 28-13. Denver took care of Cleveland 34-12. Chicago beat up on Arizona 28-13. Baltimore dominated the Giants 33-14. And in our Sunday night football game, Seattle dominated San Francisco 42-13.
So, what game were you watching this week, Frank?
Unfortunately, I watched the Giant game today. For the most part. But the game that I liked last night, I watched the Falcons and the Lions play. I thought that was a pretty good game to watch. I thought, coming off of a dominant win last week over the Giants, I thought the Falcons would be primed for an upset, especially with Megatron and the way that offense in Detroit's been working. I was really interested to see how the Falcons would come out and respond, to getting such a big win and really taking kind of the NFC and having a chance to lock up that 1 seed. I thought that Matt Ryan played extremely well. Very efficient, 25 for 32. I believe at one point he was 12 for 12. And I think he was 23 for 23 going back to the Giants game. I believe he was 1 or 2 completions off, the all-time record for most completions in a row. And I was kind of disappointed because when they started showing the numbers, he took a shot in the end zone that I didn't think he needed to take at the time. I believe it was second and short, and he took a shot down the field that I thought he could have gone for the record if maybe he wasn't aware or whatnot. But again, we saw a pretty dominant Matt Ryan. Michael Turner, and didn't really have a good game. 41 yards on the ground. But Rodney White had a great night. 153 yards, 2 touchdowns. Julio Jones had a touchdown and 70 yards on 7 catches. And then we saw Megatron, get his record, beating Jerry Rice out for the all-time yards in a season. So that was pretty cool to watch. But I thought we learned a little bit about the Falcons, as far as being able to come back off an emotional win, and having a chance to lock up home field advantage throughout the playoffs, and they did that. So now, we play wait and see and see how well they do, in the playoffs.
So I just want to touch base on Megatron Calvin Johnson. I've said it before on this show. I've said it on other shows. Why can they not get this guy the ball in the end zone? Because this is ridiculous. He has 1,892 yards receiving all year with 5 touchdowns.
Yep.
That is stupid.
And I think it's because when they get in the red zone, he is the focal point of their entire of the defense, and he's getting underneath coverage. The safeties are looking his way. He's getting double covered, and I think Detroit's used him as a decoy this year in the red zone as opposed to using him as an actual threat. And I think we saw that a little bit last night. They kind of used him as a decoy a little bit, I believe it was, I want to say the first or second quarter. One of the times they settled for a field goal, I thought that Stafford looked his way, pump fake towards Megatron, and then went the opposite way. I thought that was interesting. I thought he may have had a fairly good matchup on the outside, and they ended up going away from him. So again, Detroit's struggled this year, I think 4 wins or 5 wins, whatever it is. So, you have to think if Megatron had found the end zone more, this team was a playoff team last year, and they've really struggled this year.
But, Terrence, don't you agree that, even a double team Calvin Johnson, give him the opportunity because he can make things happen, throw it up there, let him jump for it. Just not ignore him altogether. That's what the Lions have been doing. Do you think, you'd still... He's that kind of player that you should at least give him an opportunity, even if he's double covered?
You have to take a chance. One of the best receiver in the league this year. You have to take a chance with that. He is definitely your best opportunity to win any football game. So you can't win a football game if he doesn't have the ball in his hands.
And I agree with you. I think just giving Matt Stafford, if he throws the perfect ball in that perfect position that only Calvin Johnson can get, then it doesn't matter if he's double teamed because Calvin Johnson can climb the ladder and get it, or he can just, make that spectacular catch, but just it's up to Drew Stafford placing it to where Calvin Johnson can get it. Maybe Drew Stafford's not that talented to kind of drop it in there in 20-yard red zone. Do you think that would be the case, Terrence?
I mean, that comes to, if he can make the perfect pass, the perfect time, and the game of football isn't perfect. So, I understand as far as you don't want to force it, you have other options, but you still got to go with your bread and butter. You got to try. You got to at least make an attempt. So.
Yeah, I just remember Randy Moss, he would be double covered and they would still throw it up to him. He can make things happen, and Detroit's not doing that this year with Calvin Johnson.
He's a playmaker, and to make plays, you got to give him the ball. You got to give him opportunity to make plays.
Absolutely.
What game stood out for you this week, Terrence?
I watched the Houston and Minnesota game today. I was watching that because I wanted to see if AP was going to get how close he was going to get to the record. I also wanted to see if J.J. Watt was going to break, the sack record.
Mm-hmm.
I was kind of disappointed in the way that, Houston showed up today. For them being another top team in the league, you think they make it a little more competitive. But, these teams that's trying to get in the playoffs this year, you can definitely tell they're hungry and they want it. And Adrian Peterson he's not laying down for anybody. If he's got to put the whole team on his back, he's going to do it.
And I think he has. I think Minnesota this year is in the position of making the playoffs because of Adrian Peterson. Christian Ponder, I've seen him through college at Florida State, and he's not a quarterback that's really winning them games, but even today, he did enough to win the game to take the pressure off Adrian Peterson, and that's all he really needs to do is manage the game to get enough to let Adrian Peterson do the rest. But it's clearly a Adrian Peterson team first, and then Christian Ponder's arm.
No doubt. And that's kind of like how I see San Fran, back to San Fran. That's kind of how I see them with, them not having Copeland as quarterback and Alex Smith. He would do enough to manage the game for them, and the defense would have to hold it down. Yeah.
It's funny today, after you're watching as well, is all those comments about Christian Ponder playing so well just because he got married, which is okay. You're stretching for a storyline if that's the case. But I was quite surprised. They really came up and surprised where they are right now in the standings. You remember the longest time they were at the bottom of that division with the Lions, and they just kind of quietly put some wins together, and they're in a good position to make the playoffs. They have a tough challenge next week against Green Bay, but if they can beat Green Bay next week, that kind of puts a wrench in Green Bay's playoff position, gives them a position themselves in the playoffs, and we know and John knows that Packers and Vikings fans don't usually see eye to eye.
And looking at Adrian Peterson for MVP and Peyton Manning and Tom Brady, what about how Andrew Luck has played? And I kind of wanted to get your guys feel for this. He's thrown for just under 4,000 yards. He's got 20 touchdowns on the year. He was the number 1 overall pick. His team, was the worst team in the NFL last year, and now his team is 10-5. With a chance to go 11-5, to be the first rookie quarterback to ever get a team, to 11 wins, almost by himself. We look at the job that AP's done, single-handedly putting that team on his back, and I think it's pretty safe to say that Andrew Luck, is this team. They don't have the weapons that RG3 has, or certainly that Russell Wilson has. What do you guys think about Andrew Luck as a possible MVP candidate?
Terrence, you want to take this one first?
Sure. Of course he should be in the conversation. He's setting rookie records. He just broke Cam Newton's rookie record.
Yep.
He was the number 1 pick, as you said. So, he's playing to expectations. This is how, when they drafted him, this is how they expected him to play. He knew he had big shoes to fill, replacing Peyton. So, I think he's living up to the hype. And, of course, he should be considered in the MVP conversation. Last year, this was the worst team in the league. They added a few pieces. He was the major piece, and it's a completely, it's a complete 360.
Yeah,
definitely.
Derek,
for myself, I don't see he should win the MVP. I think he's an honorable mention for what he's done. But then again, I can't take away what RG3's done as well. These are both these guys that 1-2 in the draft, and they're both their teams in the playoffs most likely this year. So I think it's quite remarkable to have that turnaround with both teams. And I really can't buy how bad the Colts were last year because Peyton Manning wasn't there, and they had was it Printer? Can't remember his name right now,
Painter?
but yeah, Painter.
Painter.
So it just if you take the Colts from 2010 to 2012, there isn't that much of a difference, for his roster wise, just because last year they had no quarterback. So it was they weren't that bad last year considering where they were 2 years ago. That's where my thing with Andrew Luck is. But no one saw him coming in and doing this well and getting a team in a playoff spot. I think an 8-8 season would have been success for the Colts, and I don't think anyone in Indianapolis was truly expecting Andrew Luck to lead them into the playoffs. Do you think that's a true statement there, Terrence?
Oh, absolutely. No one expected it. No. That was perfect. You said it perfect. No one expected it. 8-8 is perfect. 500, I would give them that. But to be over 500 going to the playoffs, that's amazing, phenomenal.
Especially with the weapons that he has. I mean, they really don't have a dominant run game. Their defense isn't as strong as it's been in the past. I mean, he's got Reggie Wayne, but, he doesn't have – I mean, Peyton seemed like he had – at the last season that Peyton played, he had, a couple of those wide receivers that were game-changing wide receivers. I think we've seen oh, crap, now I can't remember his name. RG3's number one target now. Pierre Garçon. Yeah, yes. So he doesn't have him, and we've seen what RG3's been able to do with him. I mean, he's been his go-to guy pretty much. So I don't know. I think he deserves to be thrown in the conversation for MVP. Just the turnaround that he's done and the short amount of time that he's had to do it.
So I don't want to put salt in the wound there, Frank. But what Giants loss has been worse? This week against the Ravens or last week against the Falcons?
Yeah. That's like it's like 1 and 1A. I think everyone's kind of been like, the week prior to the game against the Falcons, everyone thought the Giants were going to turn it around and turn it on, and go into go into Atlanta and take care of the Falcons, and then after the Falcons game, a lot of like the analysts were like, oh, they're going to go into Baltimore. They can't do it they can't play this bad 2 weeks in a row. And we've seen really a Giants team that can't stop the run. They can't guard anyone, down the field. And Eli Manning, has kind of gone away a little bit. I mean, he threw for 150 yards this week, with one touchdown. And he's had poor numbers. Guys aren't getting open for him. They're not making catches. They have the occasional play down the field. I think today they had, in one of their scoring drives, they had like a 40-yard pass play. But other than that, I mean, I would have to say this week, just because you'd think that, with the Ravens struggling the last couple weeks, I believe they lost 3 in a row. So they were kind of reeling. And, the Falcons the Falcons have the best record in the NFC, whether, regardless or not whether they're the best team, but their record says they are. So I think this week would be a little bit more disappointing. What do you guys think?
I agree with you. I think you put the nail on the head there. I think, with the Falcons, no one really sees them as the best team, but they do have the best record. And without Ray Lewis, I thought the Giants had a better chance to win this week against Baltimore than they did last week against Atlanta. Terrence?
I agree. This week's loss was, this was supposed to be their turnaround game. As you guys said before, the Ravens were coming off a losing streak, and Atlanta being Atlanta during the regular season, phenomenal team, a great team. And needless will leave them out of the playoffs for right now. But during the season, they're a great team. So then losing to Atlanta at Atlanta was, that wasn't a big shock or a surprise for me. But today that was, I was kind of surprised. I thought they would get the ball rolling in the right direction. Picking up from where they've been the last few years, just starting to peak around this time. But now it looks like they're spiraling down. So I don't know what's going on in New York.
Yeah, and I think it's great how the NFL does their scheduling. The Super Bowl team next year has the hardest schedule. And I think that's great for the game. I think it shows. It's so hard to repeat in this league, and I think a lot of people are kind of leaning on the success that they had last year. And a lot of people forget that this team was 7-7. going into the game versus the Jets on Christmas Day. And they needed 2 wins to get in the playoffs. And then, once they got in the playoffs, they got hot and they won a Super Bowl. But this team over the last couple of years has not been a dominant football team. They've had good stretches of play, like we saw in the beginning of this year, and then they had a couple of good stretches in the middle of last year, and then the Super Bowl run. But this team is not. This team isn't healthy right now. Whatever you get from Hakeem Nicks, he's been injured all year. Justin Tuck was out today. Ahmad Bradshaw has been fighting injuries. The offensive line is a little banged up. The defensive line isn't getting the pressure on the quarterbacks that we've seen in recent past. So I think, this team is what it is. I mean, they are what their record says they are. They're an 8-7 football club. They have to win next week to have any chance. I'm still surprised that they do have a chance. But we'll see where it goes. They're a proven team. If they get in the playoffs, I don't know anyone that would want to play them. Just from an experience standpoint. But again, I think that this week, the loss to the Ravens that they had was pretty disappointing.
John,
I guess it's break time. It's the CANUSA Sports Desk Sunday Night Football edition on the 405 radio, 877-297-8022, and we will come right back.
You're on the 405.
Exercise is hard. So is maintaining a healthy diet. Of course, neither is half as hard as dying. Sadly, type 2 diabetes, heart disease, and stroke kill nearly 1 million people a year. Even sadder, most of these deaths are preventable with a few lifestyle changes, including regular activity, healthier eating, and not smoking. Talk to your doctor about your risk for type 2 diabetes and heart disease. And if your doctor recommends lifestyle changes or medication, listen. The reason so many die is because not enough are willing to change. You can stop it, starting right now. It's your life. Listen to your doctor. Eat better. Get moving. Visit checkupamerica.org or call 1-800-DIABETES. A message from the American Diabetes Association.
Hey sports fans, this is Derek Marquez.
And Frank Nutt from the CANUSA Sports Desk on the 405 radio.
Just a reminder to check out our live shows on Saturday mornings at 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific.
And CANUSA Sports Desk post-game show, which airs following the Sunday Night Football game and after any other big sport event.
Check us out on iTunes and download our podcasts of any of our old shows that you've missed.
CANUSA Sports Desk and CANUSA Sports Desk post-game show are available for download shortly after we air.
Check us out on our website at www.canusasd.com. That's CANUSASD.com for our latest blogs.
And you can also follow us on Twitter at CANUSASD for your up-to-date latest sports info and tweets for our upcoming shows.
I took the 405.
This is the city.
To live and die in LA.
Los Angeles.
California, the way of California.
You're on the 405.
Gambling is illegal at Bushwood, sir, and I never slice.
Sunday Night Football edition of the CANUSA Sports Desk on the 405 radio. We are toll-free at 877-297-8022. We're going to wrap it up here with one more segment for the evening. So we'll talk a little bit about Adrian Peterson and the record he may or may not break next week. And then we'll hit the rapid-fire wrap-up. Derek Marquez.
So Adrian Peterson needs 208 yards next week against a tough Green Bay team. Frank, do you think it's possible?
I don't know. He's done it 4 times in his career. He's gone over that number. I think this will be one of those times where we see, can a special player, do a special thing? Because I think you need some breaks, to get a huge number like 208. We saw Jamal Charles do it this week. I think he was 240 or 245, something like that. You have to get a couple long runs. You got to break, an 80-yard run and a 70-yard run, and then something like that, and then see what happens. Is it possible? Yeah, I think it's possible. He's arguably the best running back that I've ever seen in my lifetime. So I think that he's. I think that if there's a guy who you say, hey, you need 208 yards today, I think he's a guy that can do it. whether Green Bay loads the box and really tries to, to stop him, so he doesn't get that record, especially, because, like we were saying before, the Vikings and the Packers don't like each other. So do they do that out of spite? I don't know, but I think it is possible, yeah.
I think it's not. I was going to tell you why I think it's not going to happen. Minnesota needs to win this game. I think it's going to be whatever they need to do to win the game first. Adrian Peterson's record second. If it was a game that didn't mean anything, I think they'd rush it a lot. But if they're putting 8 in the box and forcing Christian Ponder to throw the ball, then that's what we're going to have to do. So I think that Minnesota's going to do what they need to do to win the game first, and they need to adjust their game plan around that to win the game. And I don't see Adrian Peterson getting 208. He'll have over 100, but I don't think he will run that much. What do you think, Terrence?
For a player of his caliber, I definitely think it's possible. I mean, he's been running against 8 in the box all year and still putting up great numbers. I don't think Minnesota's going to leave it to their quarterback to, try to bring this game home from. They're gonna start with AP and they're gonna end with AP. And I think I don't know if he'll get it, but he'll be close if he doesn't.
Yeah.
I just find that the team they're playing against, the situation, it's going to really be tough for him to do it.
Yeah, and John actually brings up a good point. That AP did run for 286 yards against the Packers the first time they played. So that's an interesting thing too. Does this Packers defense, look at him and say, hey, this guy torched us last time. We really got to shut him down this time, or is it a little bit of a pride thing? I want to get your guys' take on this. Adrian Peterson came out this week. I heard a soundbite, and he said that he really wants to break this record, and I thought it was interesting because normally players, will come out and they'll say, it's all about the team. I want to get this win. We'll get in the playoffs. If the record comes, it comes. If not, it's not a big deal. I just want to win. He came out and he was like, I want this record. So, I thought that was interesting coming from a player, whose team has a chance to go into the playoffs. What do you guys think about that comment?
I have no problem. He is a player that he is the captain of that team, and where he was with that injury and this whole season has been remarkable for him. Let him say that comment because he deserves to make that comment because he's just having a stellar year.
I don't have a problem with it. I mean, what this record was, we did it in 84, 85 is when it was set. I mean,
yeah,
it doesn't happen every year. No player gets this close. So just for him to be in his reach, I'd make a statement and say this is what I want. And by doing so, the way he's running like a man possessed this year. So, I mean, it's going to help his team just because, if he's fired up, amped and ready to go and breaking big runs and scoring touchdowns, that's going to put Minnesota in a better position to win.
We're going to get right to the rapid-fire wrap-up, and that means we've got 4 questions here, gentlemen. Number 1, which team is your Super Bowl pick as of Week 16? Number 2, who's your biggest performer of the week? 3, big deal or not, Calvin Johnson broke the single-season reception record. And lastly, are you for or against Saturday night NFL games?
I will start with that. So first question was, who is my Super Bowl pick as of Week 16? I'm going to go with the Denver Broncos. Who is your biggest performer? I'm going to go with Drew Brees, 400 yards passing, 3 touchdowns. Not a big deal that Calvin Johnson did it because he did it on a bad team, but he's still a great player. And I'm against NFL games on Saturday nights just because Saturday night hockey is huge in Canada, so you can't beat Hockey Night in Canada if they want the NFL numbers, so I would say no. Frank?
My Super Bowl pick, I agree with you, Derek. I think the Broncos, the way they've played, I think they've rattled off 10 or 11 wins in a row after starting 2-3. So, to me, right now, they're the best team in the AFC. I think they have a legit Super Bowl chance. My biggest performer this week was Jamal Charles, 240-plus yards rushing, a touchdown. Him and Peyton Hillis combined for over 350 yards rushing. First time ever a team with 350 yards rushing lost a game. I think it's a big deal that Calvin Johnson broke the single season yards for a season. Just because that's anytime you break Jerry Rice's record in anything with being a wide receiver, I think it's a big deal. And then I actually like Saturday Night Football. I think it's better than Monday Night Football. For me, it's tough being on the East Coast having an 8:30 start. On a Monday night. I like the Saturday night. You can go to the bar, watch the game. It's no big deal, whatever time it gets over. But that's just me.
Terrence.
I agree with you guys. Denver would be my Super Bowl pick for this week. My biggest performer this week, I would say Calvin Johnson for breaking the record. And I do think it's a big deal for him breaking the record, just because this is something that I can, I witness, a record being broken. This is something that, a lot of people haven't seen before. They saw it, but just in the present is what I'm trying to say. Just to watch it in the present. And I am against Saturday Night Football because Saturday is reserved for college football, not NFL.
That's exactly what I was thinking. Saturday night, you see those big Notre Dame games, those primetime college games. That's what they deserve their time, not the NFL. Leave the NFL to Sundays and Mondays and Thursdays.
Right. I agree.
So, Terrence, thanks for coming on.
Thursdays out.
So, quickly before we get off, just plug your Twitter, your Instagram, your website, so the listeners can follow you and check you out.
Well, the website is TerrenceFreeman.com. Go there, check me out. I got some photos, highlights, and videos of me playing, working out, football stuff. Follow me on Twitter at Freeman Terrence, at Freeman Terrence. Same with Instagram at Freeman Terrence. I just want to give a shout out to all my followers and, family members for listening in tonight. Special shout out to my wife. Got to plug her in. Got to keep her on the list. I just want to give you guys a shout out just for having me on the show. I really appreciate it, guys.
Glad you came on,
coming on. Yeah, thank you. Well, that's it for, I think, the last Sunday night football game of the season, right? We don't have Sunday night football next week, correct?
Not sure.
Let's check that. We'll figure it out. Anyway, we'll be back next Saturday morning at 11 a.m. Eastern for our normal CANUSA Sports Desk show on the 405 radio. So until then, Frank, Derek, and myself, John Grant, and we'll be talking to you.
Post-game show is brought to you by Christ, I can't find it. The hell with it.